Hey, 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 it's Kimberly Smith Austin, and we want to welcome you back to the Made to Inspire podcast. I am here with the awesome and amazing Misty Kerrigan. Hey, Misty.
Hey, Kimberly. Hey, people. We are excited because we're about to jump into a journey, would you say?
Yes, absolutely.
We're jumping into a journey about the creative process, the creative thinking process, and the 4 phases or stages, depending on how you want to call it, the 4 stages of them, and then how do we get into them, what do we do when we're in them, and some call to action so that we know we're understanding them and really integrating them into our process, whether we're CEO at work trying to change maybe some of the things that aren't working in 2025, or a young entrepreneur who's got this amazing business idea and you want to take it to the market.
Yep, that's it. So the core word we're using for this show and every show that we have in this series is innovation.
Ooh.
Remember, we told you inspiration, innovation, and action. So to get started, let's talk about something that we're passionate about, which is the 5 Ps.
Oh.
We introduced this concept of the 5 Ps to the world back in 2020. And it's really getting you to think about those ideas that sit in your head and sit in your heart. We want to help you bring them out. And when we talk to you today, it's really about the innovative process and how you take them from inspiration to monetization. So we have 5 Ps that we outline in the book. And they are
Passion,
purpose,
problem,
proficiency,
play.
yes. And I know it seems weird and you're thinking, why are we talking about this? But when you think about the creative process, we believe that it comes from one of the 5 Ps. Today, we're going to delve in a little bit deeper talking about clarify, that stage in the creative thinking process and how important it is to clarify, or better yet, identify the problem. Problem identification is everything. When you're trying to innovate, when you're trying to create, when you're trying to sell and market to someone, what problem am I trying to solve?
I love that. It reminds me of Albert Einstein's quote where he said if he had 1 hour to solve the world's biggest problem, he would spend 55 minutes clarifying that problem.
That's it. I love that. That's beautiful.
Right?
Think about that. And so often we get involved and get started on doing things without really clarifying. And today there's a lot of talk about clarity, the power of clarity, and understanding what direction you're going, what you're moving to, and what problem you're trying to solve. So I think about myself as a kid. I mentioned this recently about I think I'm a professional problem solver.
She did say that recently.
And I realized that this is the role I take as a consultant, as a coach, but it started from childhood. And so I want you to put your problem solving hat on so you can go into the clarifying mode, understanding what it is, how your organization can use it, and what holds you back.
We know a couple of things that hold us back from clarifying, because as we dive deeper into the process, sometimes people are better equipped for the different phases.
Yep.
What we want to do today is teach you could do any phase efficiently and effectively if you have the tools, no matter how much you want to jump into implementation and get things done, that this first step can save you time and money.
Absolutely. So when we think about clarifying, what is it? Number 1 is asking the question, what is the problem we're trying to solve? Who is the audience we're targeting or that we want to approach with the problem? We have to identify who that audience is, because without knowing that, we can't solve a problem. Those things are tied together. And then really looking at what is the research, what are the markers we need to look at as we clarify throughout the various stages. We can't move forward without that. I feel like that's the ground zero. That's the X marks the spot. Before you can get there, it's almost like Monopoly, when there was like, you can't, what is it?
Do not pass
go.
Yeah, pass go. Yeah.
You can't pass go. You can't use your get out of jail card yet because you haven't passed the go, the X on the spot.
I like that. Now, what really separates this process from the other 4?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, I think 1, we have to identify the gaps. When you recognize that there is a problem that your organization needs to solve, better yet, wants to solve, and want to innovate, Because if you're just trying to make new processes or create new products without really problem identification, what does the marketplace want? What does the marketplace call for? You're running in circles. You're running on the treadmill, as they would say. And we want to make sure that doesn't happen. And that's why gap analysis, problem analysis is so important in order to move forward.
I love it because it reminds me of, and we go into companies and organizations, is sometimes they're solving for the symptoms,
Yes.
not the root of what's causing the symptoms, because they're just hurry up and get that taken care of because you're trying to get through your quarter, through your year, hit your numbers.
Yep.
But it's really looking at not only what are the gaps, but why are the gaps.
I call that the Band-Aid approach.
Okay.
We're going to stick a Band-Aid on it. We're going to fix it realistically, but you haven't really fixed it. You haven't identified the problem or clarified what the issue is to ensure that you can move forward and really win.
So I like the why is the problem. So we know the problem, but now if you think about a problem as a tree, right? We know that's a big tree, there's a problem. The why is we're getting down into the roots of the tree to really get to be able to implement the things, have the ideas around it, and really think about what do we need to do for the roots and the tree, not just the tree.
I love that. I love that. And I like to think of real practical examples in your workplace. There's a process that has inconsistently not worked. There's been a lot of inconsistencies in that process. And a lot of times we get the Band-Aid approach and go, well, let's do A or let's do B, without really sitting down at the table and saying, what is the problem here? Why doesn't this process work? Who are involved or not involved in that process that stops it from working? That's when you get to the roots. As you said, get to the depth of the problem so you can identify and then really do some real work. Not the pie in the sky dreaming, but saying, how do we get to our final place of creating a solution or new solution, innovating something that will help our organization move forward?
A real life example is we went into a company one time and they thought it was the age group of the leadership because they were pretty young leaders, and in today's world of leaders, they were all mid-20s, maybe early 30s, whereas a lot of people in the company were hitting 50s and 60s. And so when we went in and really dove into it, the problem wasn't their age. What we really looked at was the gap was ownership. Everyone thought someone else was doing it or responsible for it, so it held back good ideas. It held back people just implementing small things because they thought maybe that's not my lane.
Yeah.
And so to really come in and we started really clarifying, it really was people owning their title and being defined what their job responsibility is, and then giving them permission to not have to call 80 people to be able to do something about a problem.
Yeah, and I think in that same situation, we also recognize there were some age generational gaps. They were not speaking the same language. And that was such a huge challenge when we did a little extra training and helping them understand the difference generationally in the expectations and things of that nature. It really did a shift in that organization. They were better able to fix, quote unquote, the problem and identify the problem in the way that it needed to be defined.
We looked at numbers. We increased production by like 50%.
Yeah, our 53%.
53%.
53%.
By 53%, but I think we're most proud of is we increased their connection and passion back to their job.
Yes. People got excited again, and that's what will happen when we really identify the problem, which is when you're starting on how do we innovate? How do we become great as an organization? Start there. Don't miss that step. And I say that passionately because we see it over and over again. We want to go right into the brainstorming. We want to go right into creating new things. But why? Why? Why are we here? What's the problem that exists? And then we can forge ahead, which, by the way, we're going to talk about the ideation stage next week when we talk about how to generate those ideas and the process of generating those ideas so your organization can really begin the next part of that innovation process.
I like that. Now, there is sometimes when you're in this process, some red flags to look for.
Oh, yeah.
Because what happens in this process sometimes is we get analysis paralysis because there's so much information and knowledge out there that we might get stuck in, I need more.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just wait until we get this information. Let's wait till the election. Let's wait until next quarter. Let's wait. And unfortunately, let's wait ends with us doing nothing.
Yeah.
So in this process, it's okay to take some time. We would actually set a milestone of how much time we are going to take, bring in as much information as we need, but not get stuck in waiting for information, because as we go down deeper into this rabbit hole, we're going to give you ways to create information and data so that you don't get analysis paralysis or stuck in the weeds.
I love that. Love that. What about the discomfort with ambiguity? You know, what this is something I've seen over and over again, working in corporate space over 30 plus years. I'm not telling my age, but realizing some people are not comfortable with not having enough information. They're not comfortable. And I get that because too, you know, we tend to be intellects and we want all the details. But sometimes when you're in that clarifying stage, it's okay that there's some things that aren't exactly clear. If there's others who get it and understand it and we're able to move forward. Again, we're doing gap analysis. We're doing problem identification. And it's so important that we understand everything may not be crystal clear, which is what will then drive us to that next stage as we go to the ideate and bring more out so we can continue that innovation process.
I love this. And one of the most important parts of understanding is how many companies out there solve the wrong problem.
That's good.
Right?
So they solve the wrong problem, and you know what happens? They end up creating bigger problems. And they lose money, and they lose time.
And people.
And I was just going to say that, and resources. Because people are like, I'm so done. We've been running, what is it, on the treadmill, this rabbit chasing our tails over and over again, which is why it's so important to start with the problem. Clarify, and let me say this again, clarify.
So how do we do that? What should we do in this next week for our viewers? Maybe a little call to action is, what can they do to start this process?
Yeah, well, I would say first, we look inside your organization and identify an area where there's been consistent challenges, consistent things, and you know there's a need for change. You know that you want to start innovating and looking at new ways, new processes, new products for your organization. The only way you can do it is by taking an inside look. Let's identify maybe one area that you want to innovate. Start there. Start right there and then identify the problem. Go through those steps, which we'll share with you in our show notes, some steps that you can follow to help you clarify so that you can move forward.
I like that. And put together, especially if you have a team, invite your team. Because sometimes this is a great stage where you could really feel heard.
Yes.
And sometimes when you're the boss, others are intimidated.
Yes.
So it's a great process to have a meeting, have people in the room, and just really look at, hey, let's get some clarification down and have people take time. I challenge you to look over this next couple of weeks is, how much time do you spend in clarifying something? Ooh. Are you a company that just goes right into action?
That's good.
Or do you really have a mechanism in place or a process where great people are sitting in a room getting to clarify the real problem and the roots of it and not just go into automatic solving mode?
That's it. I love it. Einstein said, people spend, what was the quote again?
The quote was, if he had an opportunity to solve the world's problem, he would spend 95% in clarifying, defining it, and 5% in solving it.
So make this your 95%. Make it your 95, not your 5. With that, as we say always, there's something out there waiting for you.
Now go get it.